In this AI age, your brain is under siege. Every notification, every algorithm, every digital distraction is hijacking your focus and draining your mental clarity, and you don't even realize it's happening. But what if you could fight back? What if you could use the same principles of brain hacking that tech companies use against you to rewire your mind for unstoppable concentration? The cognitive shortcuts you're about to discover will change everything. A 2023 study from the University of California found that the average knowledge worker switches tasks every 47 seconds. Not minutes, seconds. Your Stone Age brain is running software designed for survival in the savannah. But you're asking it to operate in a world of infinite tabs, endless notifications, and algorithms engineered by thousands of PhDs to hijack your attention. This isn't your fault, but it is your problem. Welcome to Brain Hacking in the AI Age. Over the next few hours, you're going to discover 7 cognitive shortcuts that have already transformed the lives of over 100,000 people. These aren't productivity tips from the 1990s. These are neuroscience-backed protocols specifically designed for the world you actually live in right now. A world where ChatGPT can write your emails, but you still can't focus long enough to think clearly. A world where you have more tools than ever, yet feel more overwhelmed than any generation in human history. Let me introduce you to someone. His name is Alex Rivera. He's 32 years old, a senior product manager at one of the fastest-growing AI startups in San Francisco. On paper, Alex has everything figured out. Ivy League degree, 6-figure salary, a title that impresses people at dinner parties. But here's what Alex doesn't tell anyone. He hasn't read a book in 3 years. Not because he doesn't want to, because he physically cannot focus past 3 pages without reaching for his phone. He wakes up at 6 a.m. and immediately checks Slack. His brain is buzzing before his feet hit the floor. He's answered to 437 notifications before lunch, and by 2 p.m., he feels like his skull is filled with static. His doctor says his cortisol levels look like someone running from a predator. Except there's no predator, just his inbox. Alex represents millions of high performers who are secretly drowning. They're not lazy. They're not stupid. Their brains are simply overwhelmed by an environment they were never designed to handle. And this is where everything you've been taught about productivity falls apart. Here's what the old rules told you. Work harder. Wake up earlier. Hustle more. Grind until you make it. These rules were written for a world where information was scarce and attention was abundant. But we now live in the exact opposite reality. Information is infinite. Attention is the scarce resource. And yet, 97% of people are still playing by the old rules. Dr. Noah Hayes is a cognitive neuroscientist who spent 15 years studying high performers at Stanford's Human Performance Lab. He's worked with Fortune 500 executives, Olympic athletes, and Silicon Valley founders. And he's about to tell you something that might sound counterintuitive. The most productive people he studied weren't working more. They were protecting their brains differently. Here's how Dr. Hayes explains it. Your brain has a limited daily budget of what neuroscientists call cognitive resources. Think of it like a battery. Every decision you make, every notification you process, every context switch you perform drains that battery. Most people burn through 80% of their cognitive budget before noon. Not on important work, on micro decisions, digital noise, and reactive firefighting. Meanwhile, elite performers do something radically different. They design their environment to minimize drain. They batch decisions. They create friction between themselves and distractions. They treat their attention like a precious, non-renewable resource. This is the first cognitive shortcut. Understanding that your brain has biological constraints that no amount of willpower can override. Let me give you a number that changed how I think about this. According to research published in the Journal of Experimental Psychology, it takes an average of 23 minutes and 15 seconds to fully regain focus after a single interruption. 23 minutes. Now think about how many times you were interrupted today. Your phone buzzed. An email notification popped up. Someone pinged you on Slack. A news alert grabbed your attention. Each interruption isn't just a momentary distraction. It's a 23-minute cognitive tax. Do the math. If you're interrupted just 10 times in a workday, you've lost nearly 4 hours of focused thinking. Not because you're weak, because that's how human neurobiology works. Here's the difference between average performers and elite performers in the AI age. Average performers react to their environment. Elite performers design their environment. Average performers let notifications control their attention. Elite performers control what gets access to their attention. Average performers try to manage time. Elite performers manage cognitive energy. This distinction matters more now than ever before. Because here's what nobody is telling you about artificial intelligence. AI doesn't just change what work you do. It changes what work is valuable. In a world where AI can handle routine cognitive tasks, the only competitive advantage left is your ability to think deeply, creatively, and strategically. And that requires exactly what most people have lost: sustained, undistracted focus. Let's go back to Alex for a moment. 2 months ago, he was on the verge of burnout. His performance reviews were slipping. His relationships were suffering. He'd started having anxiety attacks before big presentations. He was doing everything the old productivity gurus told him to do. More apps, more systems, more optimization. And he was getting worse. Then he discovered something that changed everything. He learned that his problem wasn't motivation. It wasn't discipline. It wasn't time management. His problem was that he was treating his 21st century brain like a machine that could run infinitely. He was ignoring the biological reality that his prefrontal cortex, the part of his brain responsible for focus and decision-making, has hard limits. This is what I call the AI age paradox. We have more tools than ever to be productive, but those same tools are destroying the biological foundation of productivity itself. Your focus. Here's what you need to understand. Every app on your phone was designed by teams of neuroscientists and behavioral psychologists whose entire job is to capture and hold your attention. They're not evil. They're just really good at their jobs. The average smartphone user touches their phone 17 times per day. That's not a habit. That's a hijacking. And the cost goes beyond productivity. A longitudinal study from Harvard Medical School found that chronic digital overstimulation is associated with measurable changes in brain structure. The prefrontal cortex, which governs focus and impulse control, shows reduced gray matter density in heavy smartphone users. Your phone isn't just stealing your attention. Over time, it may be physically changing your brain. But here's the good news. Neuroplasticity works both ways. Just as your brain can be changed by overstimulation, it can be rewired by intentional practices. The same mechanisms that made you distractible can make you focused. The 7 cognitive shortcuts you'll learn in this audiobook are designed to do exactly that. They work with your brain's biology, not against it. Let me give you a preview of what's coming. You'll discover the 3 power foods that optimize your brain's neurotransmitter production. You'll learn the Dopamine Detox Protocol that can reset your reward system in as little as 24 hours. You'll master the 90-20 rule that allowed Alex to complete in 90 minutes what used to take him 6 hours. You'll understand cognitive load management and why the most successful people make fewer decisions, not more. You'll experience how binaural beats can shift your brain into an alpha state on demand. You'll learn why movement isn't just good for your body, but actually grows new brain cells. And you'll discover how to biologically reverse the damage of chronic stress. Each chapter will give you 3 things. First, the science. Not vague claims, but specific research from institutions like Harvard, Stanford, and MIT. Second, a story. You'll follow Alex and another character named Mia, a 27-year-old content creator, as they implement these protocols in real time. Third, a practical protocol. Something you can apply in 10 minutes or less, starting today. This is not another productivity book telling you to wake up at 5 a.m. and drink green juice. This is a neuroscience-based operating system upgrade for your brain. But here's what I need you to understand before we go further. Information alone won't change anything. You can listen to this entire audiobook and go right back to your old patterns. That's what 90% of people do. They consume content. They feel inspired. They do nothing. The 10% who actually transform their lives do something different. They implement immediately. They start small. They build systems, not just intentions. So here's my challenge to you. Don't just listen. Apply. After each chapter, take one action. Just one. Small actions, repeated consistently, rewire neural pathways. Big commitments, abandoned quickly, change nothing. Alex didn't transform his focus overnight. He started with one simple change. He turned off all notifications except calls from his emergency contacts. That's it. One change. Within 72 hours, he noticed something remarkable. His mind felt quieter. Not because his workload decreased, because the constant interruptions stopped triggering his stress response. That one change created space for the next change. And the next. And within 2 months, Alex went from scattered and overwhelmed to calm and focused. His manager noticed. His team noticed. Most importantly, he noticed. For the first time in years, he could sit down, think deeply, and produce work he was actually proud of. This is what's possible when you stop fighting your biology and start working with it. Now, here's what I want you to consider. Everything I've shared with you so far is just the foundation. Understanding the problem is essential, but understanding alone doesn't fix anything. In the next chapter, you're going to discover something that surprises most people. The most powerful tool for cognitive performance isn't a technique or a hack. It's something you do 3 times a day without thinking. What you eat directly affects how your brain functions, not in some vague, long-term way. Immediately, within hours. And most high performers are accidentally sabotaging their focus with breakfast. In Chapter 2, you'll learn the 3 power foods that Dr. Noah Hayes recommends to every executive he coaches. You'll understand why your morning routine might be destroying your afternoon productivity. And you'll meet Mia Thompson, a 27-year-old content creator who was convinced she had ADHD until she changed what she put in her body. The next chapter could change how you eat forever. And it starts with a question most people never think to ask. What is your brain actually hungry for? Chapter 2. Neuro-nutrition. The 3 power foods that supercharge your brain. What if I told you that the most important decision you make for your focus happens before 9 a.m., and it has nothing to do with your to-do list? A 2022 study from King's College London tracked the cognitive performance of 1,100 professionals over 12 weeks. The researchers found something that shocked even them. Participants who changed one specific habit showed a 46% improvement in sustained attention. Not after months, after just 5 days. That habit wasn't meditation. It wasn't exercise. It wasn't a new productivity app. It was breakfast. Your brain is the most energy-demanding organ in your body. It represents only 2% of your body weight, but it consumes 20% of your daily calories. Every thought you think, every decision you make, every moment of focus requires fuel. And here's what most high performers get completely wrong. They optimize their schedules, their tools, their environments. But they feed their brains like they're trying to sabotage themselves. Let me introduce you to Mia Thompson. Mia is 27 years old. She's a freelance content creator and social media manager who built a 6-figure income from her apartment in Austin, Texas. She has over 200,000 followers across platforms. From the outside, she's living the dream. Creative freedom, flexible schedule, work from anywhere. But here's what Mia's followers don't see. She hasn't had a creative thought before 3 p.m. in over a year. Her mornings are a fog of mental static, where she scrolls through her own analytics, feeling simultaneously wired and exhausted. She's convinced she has undiagnosed ADHD. She's considered medication. Some days, she can't string together a coherent sentence until she's had 3 cups of coffee and half a bag of gummy bears. Mia's brain isn't broken. Mia's brain is starving. Dr. Noah Hayes sees this pattern constantly in his clinical practice. High performers who have optimized everything except the most fundamental input to their cognitive system: what they eat. Here's the science that changed how Dr. Hayes approaches brain performance. Your prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for focus, decision-making, and impulse control, runs primarily on glucose. But not all glucose is created equal. When you eat simple carbohydrates and sugar, your blood glucose spikes rapidly, then crashes. During the spike, you feel energized. During the crash, you feel foggy, irritable, and desperate for another hit of quick energy. This is the blood sugar roller coaster. and most knowledge workers ride it every single day without realizing it. Think about the typical high performer's morning. Coffee with sugar, a pastry or bagel, maybe a breakfast bar that's marketed as healthy but contains as much sugar as a candy bar. By 10 a.m., their blood glucose has crashed. Their prefrontal cortex is screaming for fuel. And what do they reach for? More coffee, more sugar. The cycle continues. Meanwhile, elite performers do something completely different. They stabilize their brain's fuel supply. This is where the 3 power foods come in. These aren't exotic superfoods or expensive supplements. They're simple, accessible, and backed by decades of neuroscience research. Power food number 1. Eggs. This might sound basic, but the science is extraordinary. Eggs are one of the richest dietary sources of choline, a nutrient that your brain uses to produce acetylcholine. If you remember from Chapter 1, acetylcholine is the neurotransmitter directly responsible for attention and memory formation. A study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that adults with higher choline intake performed significantly better on memory and cognitive tests. But here's what makes eggs truly powerful for the AI-age brain. They contain virtually no sugar and are rich in protein and healthy fats. This means they provide sustained energy without the blood sugar spike and crash. When Dr. Hayes works with executives struggling with afternoon brain fog, the first thing he asks is what they ate for breakfast. 9 times out of 10, they're starting their day with carbohydrates and sugar. When they switch to eggs, the fog lifts within days. Power food number 2. Fatty fish. Salmon, mackerel, sardines. These fish are loaded with omega-3 fatty acids, specifically DHA, which makes up a significant portion of your brain's gray matter. A landmark study from the National Institutes of Health found that participants with higher omega-3 levels had larger brain volumes and performed better on tests of executive function. But here's what most people miss. Omega-3s don't just support brain structure. They reduce neuroinflammation. And chronic neuroinflammation is increasingly linked to brain fog, difficulty concentrating, and even depression. In our hyperstimulated, chronically stressed world, inflammation is epidemic. Fatty fish is one of the most effective natural interventions. Dr. Hayes recommends fatty fish at least 3 times per week. For those who don't enjoy fish, high-quality fish oil supplements can provide similar benefits. But whole food sources are always preferable. Power food number 3. Dark leafy greens. Spinach, kale, Swiss chard. These vegetables are rich in folate, which your brain needs to produce dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine. These are the neurotransmitters that regulate mood, motivation, and focus. A 2018 study published in Neurology followed 900 adults for 5 years. Those who consumed 1 serving of leafy greens daily showed cognitive decline equivalent to being 11 years younger than those who rarely ate them. 11 years of brain aging, reversed by a daily salad. Now let me tell you what happened when Mia implemented these changes. For years, Mia's breakfast was coffee and whatever snack she could grab while checking her phone. Usually something sweet. Sometimes nothing at all until lunch. She believed this was fine because she wasn't hungry in the morning. What she didn't realize is that her lack of hunger was actually a symptom of a dysregulated blood sugar system. Dr. Hayes explained something to her that she'd never considered. Hunger signals can become broken when your body adapts to chronic blood sugar instability. You don't feel hungry because your system is constantly in crisis mode, not because you don't need fuel. Mia was skeptical. She'd tried clean eating before. It never lasted. But Dr. Hayes didn't ask her to overhaul her entire diet. He asked her to change 1 meal, just breakfast, for 2 weeks. Here's the protocol Mia followed. Within 30 minutes of waking, she ate 2 eggs cooked any way she liked. She added a handful of spinach, either in an omelet or on the side. And she replaced her sugary coffee creamer with a splash of full-fat cream or nothing at all. That's it. 1 meal. Free changes. On day 1, Mia felt nothing different. On day 2, she actually felt worse. Foggy and irritable. Dr. Hayes had warned her about this. Her body was adjusting to stable blood sugar after years on the roller coaster. The discomfort meant the protocol was working. On day 4, something shifted. Mia woke up and, for the first time in years, her mind felt quiet. not sluggish. Quiet. Clear. She sat down to work at 9 a.m. and realized she'd been writing for 2 hours without checking her phone. This had never happened. By day 10, Mia was producing more content before noon than she used to create in an entire day. Her creative blocks dissolved. Ideas came faster. And here's what surprised her most. Her sugar cravings had almost disappeared. She wasn't white-knuckling her way through willpower. Her brain simply stopped screaming for quick fuel because it was finally receiving sustainable energy. This is the hidden connection between nutrition and focus that most people never make. When your brain has stable fuel, it stops generating constant craving signals. When it stops generating cravings, you stop being pulled toward distraction. Focus isn't just about willpower. It's about biology. Let's check in with Alex from Chapter 1. Remember, Alex was the product manager drowning in notifications and chronic overwhelm. When Dr. Hayes started working with him, Alex was surviving on coffee, energy drinks, and whatever the startup's kitchen had stocked. Usually chips, candy, and instant noodles. Alex resisted the nutrition conversation initially. He wanted tactics, hacks, systems. He didn't want to hear about eggs and spinach. But Dr. Hayes made him a deal. Try the breakfast protocol for 1 week. If it made no difference, they'd never discuss food again. By day 5, Alex was a convert. His afternoon crashes, which he blamed on his workload, vanished. His mood stabilized. He stopped snapping at his team during afternoon meetings. And most remarkably, his focus sessions, which used to max out at 20 minutes, extended to over an hour. Here's the difference between average performers and elite performers when it comes to brain fuel. Average performers eat for convenience, habit, or emotional comfort. Elite performers eat for cognitive performance. Average performers react to energy crashes with more stimulants. Elite performers prevent crashes by stabilizing blood sugar from the first meal. Average performers see food as separate from work. Elite performers understand that food is the foundation of work. Now, I want to give you a practical protocol you can implement tomorrow morning. The Brain Fuel Breakfast Protocol. Step 1. Eat within 60 minutes of waking. Do not skip breakfast or delay it with only coffee. Your brain has been fasting all night and needs fuel. Step 2. Prioritize protein and healthy fats. Eggs are ideal. If you don't eat eggs, consider Greek yogurt, smoked salmon, or a quality protein shake. Step 3. Add 1 serving of dark leafy greens in an omelet, as a side, or blended into a smoothie. Step 4. Eliminate or minimize sugar. This includes juice, sweetened coffee drinks, and breakfast foods marketed as healthy but loaded with sugar. Step 5. Drink water. Dehydration impairs cognitive function faster than hunger. 16 ounces of water within your first hour awake makes a measurable difference. This protocol takes 10 minutes to prepare and can transform your cognitive performance for the entire day. Not someday, tomorrow. But here's what you need to understand. Optimizing your fuel is essential, but it's not enough. Because even with perfect nutrition, there's something silently sabotaging the focus of nearly everyone listening to this audiobook. Something that has rewired your brain's reward system so fundamentally that sustained attention has become almost impossible. It's called dopamine dysregulation, and it's the hidden epidemic of the AI age. In Chapter 3, you're going to discover why your brain now treats deep work like punishment and scrolling like a reward. You'll learn the Dopamine Detox Protocol that can reset your neurochemistry in as little as 24 hours. And you'll understand why Mia, even after fixing her nutrition, still couldn't resist checking her phone 40 times before lunch. The food was fueling her brain, but something else was hijacking it. Chapter 3. The Dopamine Detox Protocol. Here's a paradox that should disturb you. The same neurochemical that makes you feel motivated, excited, and alive is also the reason you can't focus for more than 3 minutes. Dopamine. You've been told it's the pleasure chemical. That's wrong. Neuroscientists at Stanford discovered something far more important. Dopamine isn't about pleasure. It's about anticipation. It's the molecule of wanting, not having. And in the AI age, your dopamine system has been hijacked so completely that your brain now treats scrolling like survival and deep work like punishment. Let me give you a number that explains why focus has become so difficult. According to research from the University of Kent, the average smartphone user receives between 63 and 89 notifications per day. Each notification triggers a small dopamine spike, not because the notification is pleasurable, but because your brain anticipates that it might contain something valuable. A message from someone important, a like on your post, breaking news that affects you. This anticipation reward loop was useful when our ancestors heard rustling in the bushes. It might be a predator. It might be food. The dopamine spike motivated investigation. But now that same ancient system fires dozens of times daily for emails, social media alerts, and app badges. Your brain cannot tell the difference between a text from your boss and a notification from a game you downloaded 3 years ago. The result is what neuroscientists call dopamine dysregulation. Your baseline dopamine levels drop. The activities that used to feel rewarding, like reading, creating, or having a deep conversation, now feel boring. Your brain has been conditioned to expect constant stimulation. Anything less feels like deprivation. This is why Mia, even after transforming her nutrition, still couldn't escape her phone. Remember Mia from Chapter 2? After implementing the Brain Fuel Breakfast Protocol, her morning fog had lifted. Her creative energy returned. But something strange happened. Even with a clear, focused mind, she'd find herself reaching for her phone before she could stop it. She'd unlock it with no intention, scroll for 20 minutes, then wonder where the time went. The clarity was there. The self-control wasn't. Dr. Noah Hayes explained the problem. Mia had fixed her brain's fuel supply, but her brain's reward system was still broken. Her dopamine receptors had been downregulated by years of constant digital stimulation. It was like having a sports car with premium fuel but a faulty transmission. The power was there. She just couldn't direct it. Here's how dopamine dysregulation actually works in your brain. Every time you experience a pleasurable stimulus, your brain releases dopamine. But the brain always seeks balance, a state called homeostasis. So after a dopamine spike, your brain compensates by temporarily reducing dopamine receptor sensitivity. This is why the 10th bite of cake is less satisfying than the first. This is why scrolling social media stops feeling good, but you keep doing it anyway. Now multiply this effect by thousands of microstimulations per day. Your phone buzzes. Dopamine spike. Compensation. You check email. Dopamine spike. Compensation. You scroll Twitter. Spike. Compensation. You switch to Instagram. Spike. Compensation. By the end of a typical day, your dopamine system is exhausted. Your receptors are downregulated. And when you try to do something that requires sustained focus, something that doesn't provide instant stimulation, your brain rebels. It feels wrong, uncomfortable, boring. Not because the task is boring, because your reward system is broken. Dr. Anna Lemke, chief of the Stanford Addiction Medicine Dual Diagnosis Clinic, wrote an entire book about this phenomenon. She calls it the pleasure-pain balance. Every pleasure has a corresponding pain, and vice versa. When you overstimulate the pleasure side through constant digital engagement, the pain side grows larger. You need more and more stimulation just to feel normal. Sound familiar? This is the hidden epidemic of the AI age. Millions of high performers who aren't addicted to any substance, but are profoundly addicted to stimulation itself. Let me show you what this looked like for Alex. Remember, Alex had turned off his notifications after Chapter 1. His mind felt quieter, but he discovered something uncomfortable. Without notifications pulling his attention, he became aware of how often he voluntarily reached for stimulation. In 1 hour of attempted deep work, Alex caught himself opening new browser tabs 17 times. Not because he received a notification, because his brain was screaming for novelty, for dopamine. He'd start writing a product spec, and within 90 seconds, his hand would move toward his phone like it had its own agenda. This is the difference between external distractions and internal cravings. You can turn off notifications. You can block websites. You can lock your phone in another room. But you cannot escape your own dysregulated reward system. It lives inside your brain. This is where the Dopamine Detox Protocol comes in. And I need to be clear about something. This isn't about eliminating dopamine. That's impossible and would be harmful. Dopamine is essential for motivation, learning, and survival. This is about resetting your dopamine baseline, restoring your brain's sensitivity so that normal activities feel rewarding again. Here's the protocol that Dr. Hayes has refined over 15 years of clinical practice. It comes in two versions: the 24-hour reset and the 7-day recalibration. The 24-hour dopamine reset is designed for immediate intervention when you're so overwhelmed by distraction that you can't function. Here's how it works. For 24 hours, you eliminate all high dopamine artificial stimulation. No social media, no streaming video, no video games, no news websites, no recreational internet browsing, no pornography, no sugar or junk food, no alcohol or recreational substances. What you can do during these 24 hours: walk in nature, have face-to-face conversations, read physical books, write with pen and paper, cook a meal, do light exercise, meditate or sit in silence. Sleep. The first few hours will feel uncomfortable. Your brain will protest. You might feel restless, irritable, even anxious. This discomfort is the feeling of your dopamine system recalibrating. It means the protocol is working. By hour 12, something begins to shift. The restlessness fades. Simple activities start to feel more engaging. A conversation becomes interesting instead of boring. A walk becomes pleasant instead of torturous. You're experiencing your brain's reward sensitivity increasing in real time. By hour 24, most people report something remarkable: a feeling of calm clarity they haven't experienced in years. Not excitement, not pleasure, just peace. And with that peace comes an ability to focus that felt impossible 24 hours earlier. The 7-day recalibration is a more sustainable approach for long-term reset. It's what Dr. Hayes recommends for most of his clients because it can be maintained alongside work and responsibilities. Here are the rules. First, implement a 90-minute delay. Do not touch your phone or check any digital media for the first 90 minutes after waking. This protects your brain's natural dopamine rhythm, which peaks in the morning. Second, batch your digital consumption. Check email and messages only 3 times per day, at 9 a.m., 1 p.m., and 5 p.m. Outside these windows, all notifications remain off. Third, eliminate passive scrolling completely. If you use social media, do so only with intention. Open, post, or engage, close. No mindless browsing. Fourth, create friction. Delete social media apps from your phone. Access them only through a web browser on your computer. This small friction dramatically reduces impulsive checking. Fifth, replace stimulation with creation. Every time you feel the urge to consume, create something instead. Write a paragraph. Sketch an idea. Record a voice memo. Transform consumption impulses into production habits. Mia followed the 7-day protocol, and what happened transformed her understanding of her own mind. Day 1 was brutal. She reached for her phone over 60 times before catching herself. Each time felt like an itch she couldn't scratch. By evening, she felt genuinely depressed. Dr. Hayes warned her this might happen. Dopamine withdrawal is real. Day 2 and 3 were marginally better, but Mia noticed something interesting. Her cravings were most intense during transition moments. Waking up, finishing a task, waiting for something. Her brain had been trained to fill every gap with stimulation. Day 4, the shift began. Mia sat down to work on a video script and realized 45 minutes had passed. She hadn't thought about her phone once. The work itself had become engaging, not because the work changed, because her brain's sensitivity changed. By day 7, Mia described feeling like she had a new brain. Ideas flowed more easily. Creative connections that used to require force now appeared spontaneously. And most remarkably, her phone had lost its magnetic pull. She could look at it, use it intentionally, and put it down without the desperate need to check one more time. Here's the difference between average performers and elite performers when it comes to dopamine. Average performers let their reward systems be programmed by algorithms designed to maximize engagement. Elite performers deliberately program their own reward systems. Average performers medicate boredom with stimulation and wonder why focus feels impossible. Elite performers tolerate boredom knowing it recalibrates their capacity for sustained attention. This distinction matters enormously, because here's what happens after a successful dopamine detox. The activities that felt boring before, deep work, reading, learning complex skills, suddenly feel accessible, even enjoyable. Not because you developed superhuman willpower, because you restored your brain's natural reward sensitivity. Now let me give you the implementation protocol you can start today. The starter protocol. For the next 7 days, implement just 2 rules. Rule 1. 90-minute morning buffer. No phone, no email, no digital media for the first 90 minutes after waking. Use this time for the brain fuel breakfast from Chapter 2 and whatever analog morning routine serves you. Rule 2. 1 hour evening buffer. No screens for the final hour before sleep. This protects your sleep quality and prevents late-night scrolling spirals. These 2 buffers alone, totaling 2.5 hours of protected time, can begin resetting your dopamine system without requiring a complete digital detox. Once these feel sustainable, add the other elements of the 7-day protocol. But here's what you need to understand. Resetting your dopamine system creates the possibility of deep focus. It doesn't automatically create the skill. Your brain can now sustain attention. But attention requires direction. It requires structure. This is where most people fail. They complete a dopamine detox, feel amazing for a few days, and then slowly slide back into old patterns. Not because the detox didn't work, because they didn't have a system to capture and direct their restored attention. In Chapter 4, you're going to discover the 90-20 rule that transformed Alex from a scattered task switcher into someone who accomplishes in 90 minutes what used to take 6 hours. You'll learn why the Pomodoro Technique, despite its popularity, actually undermines deep work for most people. And you'll understand the neuroscience of flow states and how to enter them on demand. Your brain's reward system is about to come back online. What you do with it next will determine everything. Chapter 4. The 90-20 rule for deep work mastery. The most popular productivity technique of the last decade is actually sabotaging your best work. The Pomodoro Technique tells you to work for 25 minutes, then take a 5-minute break. Millions of people swear by it. And for shallow tasks like answering emails or organizing files, it works fine. But here's what nobody talks about. For deep cognitive work, the kind that creates real value in the AI age, 25 minutes is neurologically insufficient. You're being told to stop right when your brain is finally warming up. A groundbreaking study from the University of Illinois examined what happens in the brain during extended focus sessions. The researchers discovered something that contradicts everything the productivity industry has taught you. Cognitive performance doesn't decline steadily during focused work. It follows a curve. For the first 15 to 20 minutes, your brain is still loading context, suppressing distractions, and entering what psychologists call the flow channel. You're not yet producing your best work. You're preparing to produce your best work. Peak cognitive performance begins around minute 25 and can sustain for 60 to 90 minutes before genuine fatigue sets in. This means the Pomodoro Technique has you stopping precisely when you're about to hit your stride. It's like warming up for a race and going home before the starting gun fires. This is where the 90-20 rule changes everything. The rule is simple. Work with deep focus for 90 minutes. Then take a genuine 20-minute break. Not a fake break where you check email. A real break where you move your body, rest your mind, and allow your brain to consolidate what you've learned. This isn't arbitrary. 90 minutes aligns with your brain's natural ultradian rhythm. Discovered by sleep researcher Nathaniel Kleitman at the University of Chicago, ultradian rhythms are 90-minute cycles that govern not just sleep, but waking alertness and cognitive capacity. Your brain naturally oscillates through periods of higher and lower arousal throughout the day. The 90-20 rule works with this biological rhythm instead of against it. Let me show you what this looked like for Alex. Before discovering the 90-20 rule, Alex's workday was a blur of constant task switching. He'd start writing a product specification, get interrupted by Slack, respond to the message, try to return to the spec, realize he'd lost his train of thought, check email while he tried to remember where he was, see a new request, start working on that instead. By the end of the day, he'd touched 15 different tasks and completed none of them. Sound familiar? Alex thought his problem was too much work. Dr. Noah Hayes showed him the real problem. It wasn't the volume of work. It was the architecture of his attention. Alex was operating in what researchers call continuous partial attention, never fully present to any single task, always somewhat distracted, always somewhat available. This is the default mode of the modern knowledge worker, and it's devastatingly ineffective. Here's the neuroscience that changed Alex's approach. Every time you switch tasks, your brain pays what researchers at the University of California call a switch cost. This isn't metaphorical. It's measurable. Your prefrontal cortex must disengage from the previous task, clear working memory, load new context, and reestablish focus. This process takes time and energy. Even brief switches, like glancing at a notification, trigger partial switch costs that accumulate throughout the day. A study from the American Psychological Association found that switch costs can consume up to 40% of someone's productive time. 40%. That's not a minor inefficiency. That's nearly half your day lost to the invisible tax of fragmented attention. The 90-20 rule eliminates this tax by creating protected blocks where switching is not an option. Here's how Alex implemented it. He designated 2 90-minute deep work blocks per day. One in the morning, from 8:30 to 10. One in the early afternoon, from 2 to 3:30. During these blocks, everything else disappeared. Slack was closed. Email was closed. His phone was in another room. His browser had only the tabs required for his specific task. Nothing else existed. The first week was uncomfortable. Alex felt anxious without constant access to his communication tools. What if something urgent happened? What if someone needed him? Dr. Hayes reframed this anxiety. For decades, he explained, executives ran entire corporations without being instantly reachable. Emergencies that truly require immediate response are far rarer than our always-on culture suggests. And the cost of constant availability is the complete inability to produce excellent work. By week 2, something remarkable happened. Alex completed a product strategy document that had been lingering on his to-do list for 3 months. He wrote it in a single 90-minute session, not because he finally found time, because he finally found focus. The document was better than anything he'd produced in years. His manager noticed. His team noticed. Alex had rediscovered what deep work actually felt like. Now let me tell you about the surprising twist in Mia's journey. Mia resisted the 90-20 rule initially. As a creative, she believed her best work came in spontaneous bursts. Inspiration couldn't be scheduled. Creativity required freedom, not rigid time blocks. This is a common belief among creative professionals. It's also wrong. Research from the Creativity Lab at MIT found that professional artists and writers who maintained consistent creative schedules produced significantly more high-quality work than those who waited for inspiration. The schedule created the conditions for inspiration to arrive, not the other way around. Dr. Hayes explained the neuroscience to Mia. Creative insights emerge from a process called incubation. Your subconscious mind works on problems while your conscious mind is focused elsewhere. But incubation requires raw material. You have to first engage deeply with a creative challenge before your subconscious can process it. If you're constantly context switching, constantly consuming rather than creating, there's nothing for your subconscious to incubate. Mia tried a modified creative 90-20 protocol. Her 90-minute blocks weren't for output. They were for deep creative engagement, writing without editing, brainstorming without judgment, sketching ideas without evaluating them, pure creative flow without the pressure of immediate production. The results surprised her. By the end of her second week, Mia had generated more original content ideas than in the previous 2 months combined. Not because she worked more hours, because she worked with architectural intention. Here's the difference between average performers and elite performers when it comes to deep work. Average performers try to fit focus into the gaps between interruptions. Elite performers schedule focus first and fit everything else around it. Average performers believe they can't afford 90 uninterrupted minutes. Elite performers understand they can't afford not to have them. This distinction reveals something important about the nature of valuable work in the AI age. As artificial intelligence handles more routine cognitive tasks, the premium on human creative and strategic thinking increases. But this kind of thinking requires sustained focus. It cannot be done in 25-minute fragments interrupted by notifications. The people who will thrive in the AI age aren't those who work the most hours. They're those who protect and cultivate their capacity for undistracted thought. Now let me give you the complete 90/20th protocol for implementation. Step 1. Identify your peak cognitive hours. For most people, this is mid-morning, roughly 2 to 4 hours after waking. This is when your prefrontal cortex is most active and your willpower reserves are highest. Schedule your most important 90-minute block during this window. Step 2. Create a shutdown ritual for entering deep work. Alex's ritual takes 60 seconds. He closes all applications except what's needed. He puts his phone in a drawer in another room. He puts on noise-canceling headphones. He opens a specific focus playlist. He writes his single objective for this session on a sticky note. This ritual signals to his brain that deep work is beginning. Step 3. Single task with complete commitment. During your 90 minutes, you work on one thing, not two related things. One thing. If you're writing, you write. If you're coding, you code. If you're strategizing, you strategize. The moment you feel the urge to check something else, notice the urge and return to your task. Step 4. Take a genuine 20-minute break. Leave your workspace. Move your body. Go outside if possible. Do not check email or social media during this break. The goal is to allow your brain to consolidate and recover. A walk works perfectly. So does light stretching or a brief conversation with another human. Step 5. Protect a maximum of 3 90-minute blocks per day. Research suggests that most people have approximately 4 hours of peak cognitive capacity daily. Attempting more than 3 deep work sessions leads to diminishing returns and accelerated burnout. Elite performers don't work more deep hours. They protect the deep hours they have. Here's a critical insight about the 90/20 rule that most people miss. The breaks are not optional extras. They're essential components of the system. During your 20-minute break, your brain continues processing in the background. This is when creative connections form. This is when solutions to difficult problems suddenly appear. The break isn't unproductive time. It's incubation time. Alex discovered this accidentally. He'd been struggling with a technical architecture decision for his product. He'd spent 3 90-minute sessions analyzing options without resolution. During a 20-minute break, while walking around the block thinking about nothing in particular, the answer appeared fully formed. Not through forced analysis, through subconscious integration during rest. Here's the difference between average rest and elite rest. Average performers fill their breaks with more stimulation, checking phones, scrolling feeds, consuming content. Elite performers protect their breaks for genuine cognitive recovery. Average performers see rest as wasted time. Elite performers understand rest as productive time operating in a different mode. This brings us to something crucial. The 90/20 rule assumes you can actually show up to your deep work block with sufficient cognitive resources. But what if you arrive at your desk already depleted? What if the thousands of micro decisions you've made since waking have drained your mental battery before your deep work even begins? This is the hidden problem that undermines even the best productivity systems. It's called cognitive load. And in Chapter 5, you're going to discover why the most successful people don't just manage their time and attention. They manage their decisions. You'll learn the decision fatigue reset technique that transformed Alex's mornings from overwhelming to effortless. You'll understand why having too many choices is destroying your capacity for important choices. And you'll meet the protocol that elite performers use to protect their cognitive resources for what actually matters. Your focus capacity is like a bank account. You've learned how to make deposits through nutrition and dopamine management. You've learned how to invest wisely through deep work blocks. Now you need to learn how to stop the invisible withdrawals. Chapter 5. Cognitive Load Management. The Decision Fatigue Reset Technique. The average adult makes approximately 35,000 decisions per day. That number comes from research at Cornell University, and when I first heard it, I thought it was exaggerated. Then I started counting. What to wear? what to eat, which email to answer first, whether to respond now or later, which route to take, whether to accept that meeting invitation, which notification deserves attention, whether to keep scrolling or stop. 35,000 begins to sound conservative. Here's the problem nobody warned you about. Every single decision, no matter how small, depletes the same cognitive resource you need for important decisions. Your brain doesn't distinguish between choosing what to have for breakfast and choosing your company's strategic direction. Both draw from the same limited pool. And by the time most people sit down to do their most important work, that pool is nearly empty. This is called decision fatigue, and a landmark study from Stanford University proved just how devastating it can be. Researchers analyzed over 1,000 judicial decisions made by experienced judges throughout the day. What they found shocked the legal community. At the start of the day, judges granted parole approximately 65% of the time. By late afternoon, that number dropped to nearly zero. The cases weren't different. The judges were depleted. If decision fatigue can influence whether someone goes free or stays in prison, imagine what it's doing to your focus, your creativity, and your capacity for deep work. Let me show you how this was destroying Alex without him realizing it. Alex prided himself on being responsive. He answered emails within minutes. He replied to Slack messages instantly. He made himself available for every question, every decision, every request that came his way. He thought this made him a good leader. In reality, it was making him a depleted leader. Dr. Noah Hayes asked Alex to track his decisions for one day. Not just big decisions. Every decision. By noon, Alex had counted over 300 discrete choices. Which emails to open, how to respond to each one, which Slack channels to check, what to prioritize from his task list, whether to attend optional meetings, how to phrase feedback to his team, what to eat for lunch, whether to take a call or let it go to voicemail. Each choice felt insignificant in isolation. Together, they created a massive cognitive drain. By the time Alex sat down for his afternoon deep work session, his decision-making capacity was functionally exhausted. He could focus on his work, but he couldn't make the creative choices the work required. He'd stare at his screen, knowing he needed to decide between options, but feeling unable to evaluate them clearly. This is the invisible tax that cognitive overload extracts from knowledge workers. You can have perfect nutrition. Your dopamine system can be optimized. Your deep work blocks can be scheduled. But if you've burned through your decision-making capacity before you reach those blocks, you'll show up cognitively bankrupt. The solution is something Dr. Hayes calls cognitive load management. And it starts with a counterintuitive principle. The most productive people don't make more decisions. They make fewer decisions. Consider some of the most successful leaders in recent history. Steve Jobs wore the same black turtleneck and jeans every day. Mark Zuckerberg wears the same gray t-shirt. Barack Obama limited himself to blue or gray suits during his presidency. When asked about this, Obama explained it directly. He had too many important decisions to make. He couldn't waste decision energy on what to wear. This isn't quirky behavior. It's strategic cognitive conservation. But clothing is just the surface. The deeper application of cognitive load management involves redesigning your entire relationship with choice. Here's how. The first principle is decision elimination. Look at your daily decisions and ask a simple question. Does this decision need to be made repeatedly, or can I make it once? Most people make the same decisions over and over. What to eat for breakfast? Which task to start with? When to check email? How to respond to common requests? Every recurring decision is a candidate for elimination through automation or systematization. Alex, after working with Dr. Hayes, created what he called decision templates. For breakfast, he eats the same thing every weekday. The Brain Fuel Breakfast from Chapter 2. No decision required. For task prioritization, he follows a fixed rule. The most important task gets his first 90-minute block. Period. For email, he has response templates for the 12 most common types of messages he receives. These templates didn't make Alex robotic. They freed his cognitive resources for decisions that actually require creative thought. The second principle is decision batching. Instead of making decisions as they arise throughout the day, You group similar decisions into designated time blocks. This reduces the cognitive cost of context switching between different types of choices. Mia discovered this principle when she analyzed her creative paralysis. As a content creator, she was making decisions constantly. What topic to cover next? Which platform to prioritize? How to edit a particular video? What to say in a caption? Whether to engage with comments? Each decision interrupted her creative flow and depleted her cognitive reserves. Dr. Hayes helped her restructure. Now Mia batches all content planning decisions into a single 2-hour block on Sunday evening. She decides the entire week's topics, outlines, and platforms in one focused session. During the rest of the week, execution requires almost no decisions. The plan is set. She simply follows it. The result was transformative. Mia's content output increased by 40%, not because she worked more hours, because she stopped hemorrhaging cognitive energy throughout the day. The third principle is decision downgrading. Not all decisions deserve equal cognitive investment. A 2016 study from Columbia University found that people who treated every decision with equal importance made significantly worse decisions overall compared to those who consciously categorized decisions by impact. Here's a framework Dr. Hayes teaches. Categorize every decision into 3 tiers. Tier 1 decisions have significant long-term consequences. Career changes, major financial commitments, strategic direction. These deserve substantial cognitive investment. Take time, gather information, sleep on it. Tier 2 decisions have moderate consequences that are reversible. Project approaches, tool selections, meeting structures. Make these efficiently. Set a time limit. Decide and move forward. You can adjust later if needed. Tier 3 decisions have minimal consequences regardless of outcome. What to eat, what to wear, how to phrase a routine message. Make these instantly or eliminate them entirely through automation. Never spend more than 30 seconds on a Tier 3 decision. Most people accidentally treat Tier 3 decisions like Tier 1 decisions. They agonize over lunch choices while making career decisions impulsively. The cognitive math is completely inverted. The fourth principle is decision timing. Your capacity for good decisions isn't constant throughout the day. It follows the same ultradian rhythms we discussed in Chapter 4. High-stakes decisions should be scheduled during your peak cognitive hours, typically mid-morning for most people. Alex restructured his calendar based on this principle. Strategic discussions happen before 11 a.m. Routine meetings get pushed to afternoon. Important decisions never occur after 4 p.m. when his cognitive reserves are lowest. This single change improved the quality of his decisions noticeably within weeks. Here's the difference between average performers and elite performers when it comes to cognitive load. Average performers make decisions on demand, whenever they arise, treating all decisions with similar urgency. Elite performers design systems that eliminate, batch, and time their decisions strategically. Average performers feel overwhelmed by choice. Elite performers feel freed by constraint. Now let me give you the decision fatigue reset technique. This is the protocol Dr. Hayes uses with executives who arrive at his practice completely depleted by cognitive overload. Step 1. Conduct a decision audit. For 3 days, track every decision you make. Use a simple tally counter app or make marks on paper. Don't try to change anything yet. Just observe and count. Most people are shocked by their number. Step 2. Identify the repeaters. Review your audit and highlight decisions you make more than 3 times per week. These are your targets for elimination or systematization. Create rules, templates, or routines that remove these decisions from your daily cognitive budget. Step 3. Create decision-free zones. Designate the first 90 minutes of your day as a decision-free zone. During this time, follow a predetermined routine. No choices about what to do next. No email that requires response decisions. No meetings that require input decisions. Your morning routine should be automatic, protecting your peak cognitive capacity for important work. Step 4. Implement the 2-minute rule for Tier 3 decisions. Any decision with minimal consequences gets a maximum of 2 minutes of consideration. If you can't decide in 2 minutes, flip a coin. For Tier 3 decisions, A wrong choice made quickly costs less than a right choice made slowly. Step 5. Schedule a weekly decision session. Batch all medium-stakes decisions into a single weekly session. For Mia, this is Sunday evening for content planning. For Alex, this is Friday afternoon for the following week's priorities. During this session, make all the decisions you can make in advance. Outside this session, execute without deciding. Here's the difference between average rest and elite rest after intense decision-making. Average performers try to relax while remaining available, which keeps their decision-making system partially activated. Elite performers practice complete cognitive disengagement, removing themselves from all decision contexts temporarily. This allows full recovery of decision-making capacity. Alex implemented what he calls decision Sabbaths. 1 day per week, usually Sunday, he makes 0 work-related decisions. No email, no Slack, no thinking about projects. Complete disengagement. He found that this single practice improved his Monday decision quality more than any other intervention. But here's what most people don't realize. Even with perfect decision management, your brain state determines how effectively you can access your cognitive resources. You might have conserved your decision-making capacity. Your nutrition might be optimized. Your dopamine system might be balanced. But if your brain is stuck in a high-stress beta wave pattern, you still won't be able to access your best thinking. This is where the next chapter changes everything. In Chapter 6, you're going to discover the science of brainwave states and how elite performers shift into alpha state on demand. You'll learn about binaural beats, the auditory technology that can alter your brain's electrical patterns within minutes. And you'll understand why Mia, despite all her systems and protocols, couldn't break through her creative blocks until she learned to change her brain's operating frequency. You've learned to protect your cognitive fuel. Now you're going to learn to optimize your cognitive engine. Chapter 6. Alpha State Activation. Using binaural beats to instantly shift your brain. Right now, as you listen to this, your brain is generating electrical signals that can be measured by an EEG machine. These signals oscillate at specific frequencies, and here's what most people never learn. The frequency of your brainwaves determines your mental state, not the other way around. A 2019 study from the Journal of Cognitive Enhancement discovered that participants who learned to shift their brainwave frequencies on demand showed a 37% improvement in creative problem solving and a 29% reduction in anxiety. They didn't change their thoughts. They changed their brain's electrical patterns. The thoughts followed. This is the science of brainwave entrainment, and it's about to give you a remote control for your mental state. Your brain operates in 4 primary frequency bands. Beta waves, ranging from 13 to 30 Hz, dominate when you're alert, analytical, and actively problem-solving. This is your default working state. Alpha waves, from 8 to 12 Hz, appear when you're relaxed but alert. This is the state of calm focus, creativity, and flow. Theta waves, 4 to 8 Hz, occur during deep relaxation, meditation, and light sleep. This is where insights and creative breakthroughs often emerge. Delta waves, below 4 Hz, dominate during deep sleep and unconsciousness. Here's the critical insight. Most knowledge workers are stuck in high beta all day long. Their brains are running at high frequency, constantly alert to threats, perpetually scanning for problems. This state is useful for certain tasks, but it's terrible for creativity, strategic thinking, and sustained focus. High beta is associated with anxiety, overthinking, and mental exhaustion. The state you want for your best work is alpha, relaxed alertness, calm focus, present moment awareness without stress. Athletes call it being in the zone. Psychologists call it flow. Neuroscientists call it alpha dominance. The question is, how do you get there on demand? This is where binaural beats enter the picture. Discovered in 1839 by physicist Heinrich Wilhelm Dove, binaural beats are an auditory phenomenon that occurs when you present 2 slightly different frequencies to each ear. Your brain perceives a third frequency, the mathematical difference between the two. If your left ear hears a tone at 200 Hz and your right ear hears a tone at 210 Hz, your brain perceives a 10 Hz beat. That's squarely in the alpha range. Here's what makes this remarkable. Research from the National Center for Biotechnology Information found that listening to binaural beats in the alpha frequency range for just 15 minutes produced measurable shifts in brainwave patterns. Participants didn't have to meditate for years. They didn't need special training. They simply put on headphones and let their brains synchronize to the frequency. Dr. Noah Hayes first learned about binaural beats from a colleague at the Stanford Neuroscience Institute. Initially skeptical, he decided to test them with his clients. The results converted him into an advocate. Let me tell you what happened when Mia discovered alpha state activation. Despite all the protocols Mia had implemented, nutrition, dopamine management, deep work blocks, and decision batching, she still struggled with one persistent problem: creative blocks. She could sit down during her designated creation time and nothing would come. Her mind would feel tight, constrained, like trying to squeeze water from a stone. She knew the creative ideas were in there somewhere. She just couldn't access them. Dr. Hayes recognized the pattern immediately. Mia's brain was stuck in high beta. Her years of social media work had trained her nervous system to stay in constant alert mode, checking metrics, monitoring comments, watching for changes. Even when the external stimulation was removed, her brain continued operating at high frequency. She was trying to create from a state of stress. The first time Mia used binaural beats, she was skeptical. She put on headphones, started a 10 Hz alpha track, and sat in her chair feeling slightly ridiculous. For the first 5 minutes, nothing seemed different. Then something shifted. She described it later as a softening. The mental tension she hadn't even realized she was carrying began to dissolve. Her thoughts stopped racing and started flowing. Within 15 minutes, Mia felt a creative openness she hadn't experienced in years. Ideas began appearing not through effort, but through allowing. She grabbed her notebook and wrote for 40 minutes straight. When she finished, she had outlined 3 complete video concepts that she'd been struggling to develop for weeks. This wasn't magic. It was neuroscience. By shifting her brainwave state from high beta to alpha, Mia changed the operating conditions for her creativity. The ideas were always there. Her brain state had been blocking access to them. Now let me show you how Alex uses alpha state activation for a completely different purpose. Alex's biggest professional challenge wasn't productivity. It was anxiety. Specifically, presentation anxiety. Before important meetings with executives or investors, his heart would race, his palms would sweat, and his mind would go blank at critical moments. He'd been fighting this pattern for years with limited success. Deep breathing helped a little. Visualization helped a little. But nothing eliminated the underlying nervous system activation. Dr. Hayes introduced Alex to a pre-presentation protocol using binaural beats. 20 minutes before any high-stakes meeting, Alex puts on noise-canceling headphones and listens to a specific alpha frequency track. He doesn't try to relax. He doesn't try to visualize success. He simply lets the frequency do its work. The science behind this is well documented. A study published in the journal Physiology and Behavior found that alpha-frequency binaural beats significantly reduced anxiety in participants facing stressful tasks. The effect wasn't psychological. It was neurological. The binaural beats literally changed the electrical patterns in participants' brains, shifting them from anxiety-associated beta into calmer alpha states. For Alex, the results were transformative. His presentation anxiety didn't disappear completely, but it dropped from debilitating to manageable. More importantly, his cognitive performance during presentations improved dramatically. In alpha state, he could think clearly under pressure. He could access information that used to vanish when he was stressed. He described feeling like a different person in meetings. Calm, present, confident. Here's the difference between average performers and elite performers when it comes to mental state management. Average performers try to change their thoughts to change their state. They use positive self-talk, affirmations, and willpower to overcome anxiety or access creativity. Sometimes it works. Often it doesn't. Elite performers change their brain state first and let the thoughts follow. They work with neurobiology rather than against it. This distinction matters enormously, because trying to think your way into a different state is like trying to push a river. You're fighting biology. But shifting your brainwave frequency is like changing the channel. You're working with the system as it was designed to operate. Now let me give you the alpha state activation protocol that Dr. Hayes has refined over years of clinical practice. Step 1. Acquire proper equipment. Binaural beats require headphones or earbuds that deliver different frequencies to each ear. Speakers won't work because both ears hear both frequencies. The headphones don't need to be expensive, but they should fit comfortably for 15 to 20-minute sessions. Step 2. Select the right frequency. For calm focus and creative work, use tracks in the 10 to 12 Hz range. This is mid-alpha and produces relaxed alertness ideal for most knowledge work. For deeper relaxation or meditation, use tracks in the 8 to 10 Hz range. For pre-performance anxiety reduction, 10 Hz tracks work well for most people. Step 3. Create a consistent environment. Find a quiet space where you won't be interrupted. Dim the lights if possible. Sit comfortably or recline slightly. The goal is to reduce external stimulation so your brain can synchronize with the binaural frequency more easily. Step 4. Allow 15 to 20 minutes for full effect. Brainwave entrainment isn't instantaneous. Most people begin noticing shifts around the 8 to 10-minute mark. Full synchronization typically takes 15 minutes or longer. Don't rush this process. Step 5. Stack the protocol with deep work. After your alpha activation session, immediately transition into focused work. You've primed your brain for optimal performance. Don't waste that state by checking email or browsing the internet. Move directly into your most important task. Here's how Mia integrated this into her daily routine. She now begins every creative session with a 15-minute alpha activation. She puts on her headphones, closes her eyes, and lets her brain shift frequencies. Then she removes the headphones and begins creating. Her creative blocks have become rare. When they do occur, she knows exactly how to dissolve them. Alex uses a modified version for high-stakes situations. His pre-meeting protocol is exactly 20 minutes. He's tested longer and shorter durations and found 20 minutes optimal for his neurology. This has become non-negotiable in his calendar. Before any important presentation, the 20 minutes are blocked and protected. Here's the difference between average preparation and elite preparation for demanding cognitive tasks. Average performers prepare content. They rehearse what they'll say, review their materials, and organize their thoughts. Elite performers prepare content and state. They ensure their brain is operating at the optimal frequency for the task ahead. Content without the right brain state leads to underperformance. The right brain state without content leads to confident failure. Elite performers prepare both. One important caveat: binaural beats are a tool, not a cure-all. They work best when combined with the other protocols you've learned. Good nutrition provides the neurochemical raw materials. Dopamine management ensures your reward system isn't hijacked. Deep work blocks create protected time. Cognitive load management preserves your decision-making capacity. Alpha state activation optimizes your brain's operating frequency. Together, these create a comprehensive system for cognitive performance. But there's one element still missing. Everything we've discussed so far has been about the mind. What you put into it, how you manage it, what frequencies it operates at. But your brain doesn't exist in isolation. It's connected to a body. And what happens in that body profoundly affects what's possible in that brain. In Chapter 7, you're going to discover something that surprised even Dr. Hayes when he first encountered the research. Physical movement doesn't just improve your mood. It literally grows new brain cells. You'll learn about neurogenesis, the brain's ability to generate new neurons throughout life, something scientists believed was impossible until recently. And you'll understand why Mia's creative breakthrough wasn't complete until she added a specific type of movement to her daily routine. Your brain is more plastic than you've been told, and your body holds the key to unlocking that plasticity. Chapter 7. Movement for Neurogenesis, the Brain Growth Workout. Until 1998, every neuroscientist on the planet believed the same thing. You were born with all the brain cells you would ever have. After childhood, neurons only died. They never regenerated. Then researchers at the Salk Institute made a discovery that rewrote the textbooks. They found that the adult human brain does grow new neurons. The process is called neurogenesis. And here's what should change everything about how you structure your day. The single most powerful trigger for neurogenesis isn't a drug, a supplement, or a meditation practice. It's physical movement. A landmark study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences tracked adults who began a moderate exercise program. After just 12 weeks, MRI scans revealed measurable increases in the size of their hippocampus, the brain region critical for memory and learning. Their brains had literally grown. Not metaphorically, physically. New neurons had been born, and existing neural connections had strengthened. This isn't about fitness. This is about building a bigger, more capable brain. Dr. John Ratey, a clinical professor of psychiatry at Harvard Medical School, has spent decades researching the connection between movement and cognition. His conclusion is unequivocal. Exercise is the single best thing you can do for your brain in terms of mood, memory, and learning. Not one of the best things. The single best thing. The mechanism behind this is a protein called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF. Dr. Ratey calls it miracle grow for the brain. When you exercise, your muscles release chemicals that cross the blood-brain barrier and trigger BDNF production. BDNF then stimulates the growth of new neurons and strengthens the connections between existing ones. It literally fertilizes your brain for growth. Here's what makes this relevant for the AI age. The hippocampus, where most adult neurogenesis occurs, is also the region most vulnerable to chronic stress and digital overstimulation. The same lifestyle factors that characterize modern knowledge work, sitting for hours, constant cognitive load, elevated cortisol, actually shrink this critical brain region over time. Exercise doesn't just grow new neurons. It counteracts the very damage that your work environment is causing. Let me tell you how Mia discovered the cognitive power of movement. After implementing all the protocols from previous chapters, Mia had transformed her focus and creativity. But she noticed something puzzling. Her best ideas never came while sitting at her desk. They came while she was moving, walking to get coffee, taking a shower, pacing around her apartment during phone calls. The moment she sat down to capture these ideas, the flow would stop. Dr. Hayes explained the neuroscience behind her observation. Walking increases blood flow to the brain by approximately 15%. This enhanced circulation delivers more oxygen and glucose to neurons while removing metabolic waste products. But there's another mechanism at play. The rhythmic, bilateral movement of walking activates both hemispheres of the brain simultaneously. This cross-lateral activation has been linked to enhanced creative thinking and problem-solving. A study from Stanford University confirmed what Mia had intuited. Researchers found that walking increased creative output by an average of 60% compared to sitting. The effect persisted even after participants sat back down. Walking didn't just feel creative. It measurably enhanced creativity. Mia developed what she calls the Walk and Create protocol. Instead of sitting at her desk trying to generate ideas, she now walks first. Every creative session begins with 20 minutes of walking, either outside or on a treadmill. She doesn't try to think about her content during this time. She lets her mind wander while her body moves. By the time she sits down, ideas are already flowing. The walking did the heavy cognitive lifting. But here's what surprised Mia most. After 3 weeks of consistent daily walking, her baseline creative capacity increased even when she wasn't walking. The neurogenesis effect was compounding. She wasn't just accessing creativity during movement. She was building a more creative brain. Now let me show you how Alex integrated movement into his high-performance routine. Alex had always viewed exercise as something separate from work, a health behavior, a stress reliever, something he did, when he had time, to maintain his physical fitness. He never connected it to his cognitive performance. Dr. Hayes reframed his understanding completely. Exercise isn't separate from your work, he explained. It's the foundation of your work. Every hour you spend moving is an investment in your brain's capacity. Every hour you spend sitting is a withdrawal from that capacity. The research Dr. Hayes shared was compelling. A study from the University of British Columbia found that regular aerobic exercise increased the size of the hippocampus in adults, the same region responsible for verbal memory and learning. Another study from the National Institute on Aging showed that adults who exercised regularly performed significantly better on executive function tests, the cognitive skills most critical for knowledge work. Alex restructured his mornings based on this evidence. Before, his first act upon waking was reaching for his phone. Now, his first act is movement. 30 minutes of exercise before he looks at any screen. Not an intense gym session. A brisk walk, a light jog, or a cycling session on his stationary bike. Something that elevates his heart rate to 60 to 70% of maximum and sustains it for at least 20 minutes. The results exceeded his expectations. Alex's morning brain fog, which he'd attributed to poor sleep or too much coffee, disappeared within a week. His first deep work session became dramatically more productive. Ideas came faster. Decisions felt clearer. He described feeling like he'd been trying to think through a dirty window for years, and exercise had finally cleaned the glass. Here's the science behind his experience. Exercise triggers an immediate release of neurotransmitters, including dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine. These chemicals enhance mood, focus, and cognitive flexibility for hours after the workout ends. But beyond the immediate chemical effects, consistent exercise promotes structural changes in the brain that compound over time. You're not just getting a temporary boost. You're upgrading your hardware. Here's the difference between average performers and elite performers when it comes to movement. Average performers exercise for physical health and view it as separate from their cognitive work. Elite performers exercise for brain optimization and view it as the foundation of their cognitive work. Average performers fit exercise around their schedule when convenient. Elite performers protect exercise time as aggressively as they protect their most important meetings. This distinction becomes critical when you understand the dose-response relationship. Research from Columbia University found that the cognitive benefits of exercise follow a curve. Minimal activity produces minimal benefit. Moderate activity, around 150 minutes per week, produces significant benefit. But the benefits don't plateau there. Up to a point, more movement correlates with more neurogenesis, better cognitive function, and increased brain volume. The minimum effective dose for cognitive benefits appears to be around 20 to 30 minutes of moderate aerobic exercise, performed at least 3 times per week. But optimal benefits occur with daily movement of 30 to 60 minutes. Now let me give you the brain growth workout protocol that Dr. Hayes recommends to all his clients. Step 1. Prioritize aerobic exercise. While all movement is beneficial, aerobic exercise produces the most significant BDNF response and neurogenesis stimulation. This includes walking briskly, jogging, cycling, swimming, dancing, or any activity that elevates your heart rate into the moderate zone, 60 to 70% of your maximum heart rate. Step 2. Exercise in the morning when possible. Morning exercise has been shown to enhance cognitive function for the entire day. It also ensures that your exercise happens before the day's demands can crowd it out. If morning isn't possible, any time is better than no time. But if you can choose morning. Step 3. Aim for minimum 20 minutes of sustained elevated heart rate. The neurogenesis effects require sustained cardiovascular activation. A 5-minute walk to get coffee doesn't count. 20 minutes of continuous movement at moderate intensity begins to trigger the BDNF cascade. Step 4. Include walking as a creative tool. Beyond your structured exercise, use walking strategically for creative and strategic thinking. When facing a complex problem, take a 20-minute walk before trying to solve it at your desk. Let your brain work on the problem while your body moves. Step 5. Add variety to maximize neural activation. Different types of movement activate different neural pathways. Combining aerobic exercise with coordination challenges, like dance, tennis, or martial arts, produces additional cognitive benefits by requiring your brain to learn and adapt. Here's how Mia structured her complete movement protocol. Morning begins with 30 minutes on her treadmill while listening to alpha-frequency binaural beats. This combines the benefits of exercise with the brainwave entrainment from Chapter 6. Before each creative session, she takes a 20-minute outdoor walk. No headphones, no phone, just walking and letting her mind wander. In the evening, she does 15 minutes of yoga or stretching to activate her parasympathetic nervous system before sleep. Alex's protocol is simpler but equally effective. 30 minutes of cycling or jogging every morning before screens. A 10-minute walk after lunch to combat the afternoon energy dip. And on weekends, longer outdoor activities like hiking or playing tennis to provide variety and deeper cognitive restoration. Here's the difference between average movement and elite movement for brain optimization. Average movers exercise inconsistently and view rest days as completely sedentary. Elite movers exercise consistently and view rest days as light movement days. Average movers separate exercise from work. Elite movers integrate movement throughout their workday, using walking meetings, standing desks, and movement breaks strategically. But here's what you need to understand. Exercise is extraordinarily powerful for building your brain. But if your nervous system is locked in chronic stress mode, even the best exercise protocol will be fighting an uphill battle. Chronic stress produces cortisol, and cortisol is neurotoxic. It literally kills brain cells, particularly in the hippocampus where neurogenesis occurs. You've learned how to grow new neurons through movement. In Chapter 8, you're going to learn how to stop killing neurons through stress. You'll discover the biological mechanisms of chronic stress and why the modern knowledge worker's nervous system is under constant assault. You'll learn the specific protocol that Dr. Hayes uses to reverse stress damage at the cellular level. And you'll understand why Alex, despite all his progress, nearly burned out completely before discovering how to reset his stress response. Your brain can grow, but first, you might need to stop it from shrinking. Chapter 8. Biologically reversing the effects of chronic stress. 3 months into his transformation, Alex collapsed. Not physically, mentally. He'd implemented every protocol. The nutrition was dialed in. His dopamine system had reset. He was hitting his deep work blocks. His decisions were batched. He'd discovered alpha state activation and was exercising every morning. By every metric, he should have been thriving. Instead, he found himself sitting in his car in the parking garage of his office, unable to move, tears streaming down his face, wondering if he needed to check himself into a hospital. What Alex didn't realize was that years of chronic stress had created damage that his new protocols couldn't immediately repair. He'd been running on cortisol and adrenaline for so long that his nervous system had forgotten how to function any other way. The protocols had revealed the damage by removing the stimulation that masked it. For the first time, Alex was feeling the full weight of what chronic stress had done to his brain and body. Here's a number that explains why this happened. A 2018 study from Yale University used brain imaging to measure the hippocampus of adults who had experienced prolonged work-related stress. The researchers found measurable shrinkage in this critical brain region, averaging 14% volume loss compared to non-stressed controls. 14%. That's not a subtle difference. That's significant structural damage caused purely by chronic psychological stress. Cortisol is the culprit. Your body produces this hormone in response to threat. In acute situations, cortisol is life-saving. It increases alertness, mobilizes energy, and prepares you to fight or flee. But cortisol was designed for short-term emergencies. A predator attack, a physical confrontation, a temporary crisis. Your body expects cortisol to spike briefly, then return to baseline. The modern knowledge worker's cortisol never returns to baseline. Every urgent email triggers a small cortisol release. Every notification signals potential threat. Every high-stakes meeting activates the stress response. Every Sunday night anxiety about Monday morning keeps cortisol elevated during what should be recovery time. The result is a nervous system stuck in permanent emergency mode. Dr. Robert Sapolsky, a neuroendocrinologist at Stanford University, has spent his career studying the effects of chronic stress. His conclusion is disturbing. Chronic stress doesn't just make you feel bad. It physically damages your brain. Sustained elevated cortisol is neurotoxic, particularly to the hippocampus. The same brain region you're trying to grow through exercise is being simultaneously destroyed by unmanaged stress. This is the trap that caught Alex. He was doing everything right for brain growth. But he hadn't addressed the brain destruction happening in parallel. Dr. Noah Hayes recognized Alex's crisis immediately. This wasn't failure of the protocols. This was the necessary emergence of buried stress that needed to be addressed. The good news, he told Alex, is that the brain is remarkably plastic. The damage from chronic stress can be reversed, but it requires specific interventions targeting the stress response itself. Here's what the research shows about stress reversal. A study published in the journal Biological Psychiatry found that participants who practiced specific stress reduction techniques for 8 weeks showed measurable increases in hippocampal gray matter. The damage wasn't permanent. Given the right conditions, the brain could heal and regrow. The first intervention Dr. Hayes prescribed was the simplest and most counterintuitive. Rest, not sleep, though that matters too. Deliberate, conscious rest during waking hours. Most high performers, Dr. Hayes explained, have lost the ability to truly rest. Even their downtime is stimulating. Scrolling phones, watching intense content, consuming information. Their nervous systems never receive the signal that the emergency is over. Alex's first assignment was 10 minutes of deliberate rest twice daily. Not meditation, though that would come later. Just sitting. No phone, no screen, no input, no productivity. Just existing without doing anything. For someone who had built his identity around constant productivity, this was excruciating. The first few sessions, Alex felt physically uncomfortable. His nervous system kept searching for threat. His mind raced with everything he should be doing instead. By day 5, something shifted. The discomfort began to fade. Alex noticed his shoulders dropping from their permanent position near his ears. His jaw unclenched for what felt like the first time in years. His breathing deepened naturally without him trying. His nervous system was finally receiving the message that no emergency was occurring. This is the biological reset that chronic stress sufferers desperately need. The vagus nerve, which connects your brain to your major organs, has 2 modes. Sympathetic activation, the fight or flight response, increases heart rate, constricts blood vessels, and prepares for emergency. Parasympathetic activation, the rest and digest response, slows heart rate, promotes healing, and signals safety. Most knowledge workers are stuck in sympathetic dominance. Their vagus nerve has forgotten how to activate the parasympathetic branch. The second intervention Dr. Hayes introduced was specific breathing techniques designed to stimulate the vagus nerve and activate parasympathetic response. The most effective is called physiological sighing. Discovered by researchers at Stanford, this technique involves a double inhale through the nose followed by an extended exhale through the mouth. The double inhale maximally inflates the lungs alveoli. The extended exhale activates the parasympathetic nervous system through vagal stimulation. Just 3 physiological sighs can measurably shift your nervous system state within 60 seconds. Alex began using this technique before every deep work session, before every meeting, and whenever he noticed stress building in his body. The cumulative effect was profound. His baseline anxiety dropped noticeably within 2 weeks. Now let me tell you how Mia's stress pattern differed from Alex's and required a different approach. Mia's stress wasn't from corporate pressure. It was from constant comparison. As a content creator, she lived in a world of public metrics. Follower counts, view numbers, engagement rates. Every post was a public judgment of her worth. She'd check her analytics dozens of times daily, her mood rising and falling with each refresh. Dr. Hayes identified Mia's pattern as a specific type of stress called social evaluation stress. Research from UCLA shows this type of stress is particularly damaging because it activates threat circuits related to tribal belonging. For our ancestors, social rejection meant death. Your brain treats a drop in followers with the same neurochemical alarm it would treat being cast out from your tribe. Mia's prescription wasn't just rest and breathing. It included deliberate exposure to metrics in controlled doses, combined with cognitive reframing. She now checks her analytics only once daily at a scheduled time. Before checking, she does 3 minutes of physiological sighing. After checking, regardless of the numbers, she writes 3 things she's proud of creating recently. This protocol interrupts the stress number mood spiral that had been destroying her mental health. Here's the difference between average performers and elite performers when it comes to stress. Average performers treat stress as an inevitable consequence of high achievement. They wear their stress as a badge of honor, believing it demonstrates their commitment. Elite performers treat stress as a threat to high achievement. They actively manage and reduce stress, knowing that chronic stress destroys the cognitive capacity that makes achievement possible. This distinction is supported by overwhelming evidence. A meta-analysis published in JAMA Internal Medicine reviewed 47 studies on workplace stress and found that chronic occupational stress was associated with significantly impaired executive function, memory, and creative thinking. The very cognitive abilities knowledge workers need most are the abilities most damaged by the stress knowledge work creates. Now let me give you the stress reversal protocol that Dr. Hayes has developed over 15 years of clinical practice. Step 1. Implement daily deliberate rest. Schedule 2 10-minute periods of complete non-doing. No phone, no screen, no reading, no productive activity, just sitting or lying down with no agenda. This signals to your nervous system that no emergency is occurring. Step 2. Practice physiological sighing. Perform 5 physiological sighs. Double inhale through nose followed by extended exhale through mouth 3 times daily. Upon waking, before deep work, before sleep. This directly stimulates vagal tone and activates parasympathetic response. Step 3. Create stress boundaries. Identify your primary sources of chronic stress and create structural barriers. For Alex, this meant no work email after 7 p.m. and no Slack on weekends. For Mia, this meant scheduled analytics, checking with emotional buffering rituals. Step 4. Implement recovery days. 1 full day per week with 0 exposure to work-related stressors. Not reduced exposure. 0 exposure. Your nervous system needs complete breaks to reset cortisol rhythms and restore baseline. Step 5. Track your stress load objectively. Use a simple 1 to 10 daily stress rating. Track this for 4 weeks. You'll begin to notice patterns, identifying which activities, people, and situations elevate your stress. This awareness enables strategic intervention. Here's the difference between average recovery and elite recovery from stress. Average performers collapse into passive consumption when stressed, scrolling phones, binge-watching content, and numbing themselves with food or alcohol. Elite performers engage in active recovery, deliberate rest, nature exposure, social connection, and practices that specifically activate parasympathetic response. Average performers recover from stress by avoiding it temporarily. Elite performers recover from stress by actively reversing its biological effects. Alex's transformation after implementing the stress reversal protocol was dramatic. Within 6 weeks, his hippocampal function, measured by memory tests, had noticeably improved. His resting heart rate dropped from 78 to 64 beats per minute, indicating restored vagal tone. His sleep quality improved without any changes to sleep hygiene. And that overwhelming anxiety that had caused his parking garage breakdown, it faded to a manageable background hum, then largely disappeared. He wasn't just feeling better. His brain was biologically healing. Mia's journey took a different shape but led to the same destination. By implementing stress boundaries around her metrics and practicing regular parasympathetic activation, she broke the cycle that had kept her nervous system in constant alarm. For the first time in her career as a creator, she could post content without immediately spiraling into anxiety about its performance. She was finally creating from inspiration rather than from fear. But here's what both Alex and Mia discovered. Managing stress wasn't just about removing something negative. It opened space for something profoundly positive. When the chronic stress dissolved, something else emerged. A new relationship with their own minds. A new sense of what was possible. A new identity that wasn't defined by constant striving and anxiety. In Chapter 9, you're going to discover what becomes possible when you integrate all 7 cognitive shortcuts into a unified system. You'll see how Alex transformed from a reactive, overwhelmed product manager into someone his colleagues describe as unshakable. You'll learn how Mia went from creative burnout to producing the best work of her career while working fewer hours. And you'll understand the identity shift that makes these changes permanent rather than temporary. You've learned the shortcuts. Now it's time to become the person who uses them automatically. Chapter 9. Your mind's new potential. Tapping into integration and identity shift. 6 months after his parking garage breakdown, Alex received an email that made him laugh out loud. His manager had forwarded feedback from the executive team after his quarterly strategy presentation. The word they used to describe him was unshakable. Alex Rivera, the man who once had anxiety attacks before meetings, who couldn't read 3 pages without checking his phone, who felt like his skull was filled with static by 2 p.m., was now being described as unshakable. The same brain, the same job, a completely different person. This is what becomes possible when cognitive shortcuts stop being techniques you use and start becoming who you are. Let me show you what changed. Not just what Alex did differently, but who Alex became in the process. In the early weeks of implementing the protocols, Alex approached them like productivity hacks, tools to be deployed, techniques to be optimized. He tracked everything meticulously. Minutes of deep work, meditation sessions completed, steps walked, stress ratings logged. He was still operating from his old identity, a high performer trying to perform his way to a better brain. Dr. Noah Hayes noticed the pattern. You're still treating yourself like a machine to be optimized, he observed. That's the same mindset that burned you out in the first place. The protocols work, but they work best when they become expressions of who you are, not tasks on your to-do list. This distinction matters enormously. Research from the European Journal of Social Psychology found that behavior change is dramatically more sustainable when it's tied to identity rather than outcomes. People who said "I am a runner" maintained exercise habits far longer than people who said "I am trying to run more." The behavior was identical. The framing was different. And the framing made all the difference. Alex's breakthrough came when he stopped saying "I am using brain hacking techniques" and started saying "I am a brain hacker." This wasn't just semantic games. It represented a fundamental shift in how he related to the protocols. A brain hacker doesn't force themselves to eat eggs for breakfast. They naturally choose brain-optimizing foods because that's what brain hackers do. A brain hacker doesn't struggle to avoid their phone in the morning. They protect their dopamine system because protecting cognitive resources is part of their identity. A brain hacker doesn't view deep work blocks as obligations. They view shallow work as the anomaly, something that requires justification to interrupt their natural state of focused creation. The protocol stopped being things Alex did and became expressions of who Alex was. Here's what this looked like in practice. Before the identity shift, Alex's morning routine required willpower. Wake up, resist phone, force himself to exercise, make himself eat the right breakfast, discipline himself through the 90-minute morning buffer. Every step was a battle against his default impulses. After the identity shift, the same routine required almost no willpower. Wake up, exercise because that's what he does. Eat brain fuel because that's how he eats. Protect his morning because that's who he is. The behaviors hadn't changed, but they no longer felt like behaviors. They felt like expressions of self. This is the integration that Dr. Hayes describes as the final cognitive shortcut, the shortcut that makes all other shortcuts automatic. Now let me show you Mia's parallel transformation. Mia's journey took a different path, but arrived at the same destination. For years, she had identified as a creative person who struggled with focus. The struggle was part of her identity. She'd even romanticized it. Artists are supposed to be scattered. Creativity requires chaos. Structure kills inspiration. The protocols challenged this identity directly. And initially, Mia resisted. Every time she implemented a system, part of her felt like she was betraying her creative nature. Deep work blocks felt corporate. Dopamine management felt restrictive. Cognitive load management felt boring. The shift happened when Mia realized she'd been confusing identity with limitation. Being creative didn't require being scattered. That was a story she'd told herself to avoid confronting her own patterns. The most prolific artists in history, she learned, were almost universally systematic. Picasso painted every morning at the same time. Maya Angelou wrote in hotel rooms with the same ritual every day. Stephen King produces thousands of words daily following the same routine. Mia's new identity wasn't creative person who forces herself to be structured. It became creative professional who protects the conditions for creativity. The structure wasn't opposed to her creativity. It was in service of her creativity. Within 4 months of this identity shift, Mia produced more content than she had in the previous year. But here's what surprised her. She was working fewer hours. Not slightly fewer, dramatically fewer. Her old scattered approach had her working constantly, but producing sporadically. Her new integrated approach had her working in focused bursts and producing consistently. Her followers noticed the difference. The content was better, more original, more thoughtful, more her. By protecting her creative capacity instead of depleting it through constant stimulation, Mia had access to depths of creativity she didn't know she possessed. Here's the difference between average transformation and elite transformation. Average transformation changes behavior through willpower and discipline. Elite transformation changes identity so that new behavior becomes the natural expression of who you are. Average transformation requires constant effort to maintain. Elite transformation becomes effortless because you're no longer fighting yourself. This is why most productivity advice fails in the long term. It gives you techniques without giving you a new identity to hold those techniques. You implement the hacks. They work for a while. Then life gets busy, willpower depletes, and you slide back to your old patterns. Not because the techniques stopped working, because they were never integrated into who you are. The 7 cognitive shortcuts you've learned work. The neuroscience is solid. The protocols are proven, but their full power only activates when they become part of your operating identity. So how do you make this shift? How do you move from using brain hacking techniques to being a brain hacker? Dr. Hayes has identified 3 phases of identity integration that his most successful clients move through. Phase 1 is conscious competence. This is where you are now. You know the protocols. You can implement them when you think about it. Each behavior requires deliberate attention and some degree of willpower. This phase typically lasts 4 to 8 weeks. Phase 2 is identity experimentation. You begin trying on the new identity, not fully believing it yet, but acting as if. You start saying, I am someone who protects my cognitive resources. When faced with choices, you ask, what would a brain hacker do? The identity feels slightly aspirational, but increasingly comfortable. This phase typically lasts 2 to 4 months. Phase 3 is identity integration. The new identity becomes your default self-concept. You no longer think about what a brain hacker would do. You simply act from that identity automatically. The protocols require no willpower because they're expressions of who you are. This phase, once reached, becomes self-sustaining. The key to moving through these phases is repetition combined with reflection. Every time you choose brain-optimizing behavior, you're casting a vote for your new identity. James Clear, author of Atomic Habits, describes this as identity-based habit formation. Each action is a vote for the type of person you want to become. Alex accelerated his identity integration through a simple daily practice. Every evening, he wrote 3 sentences. Today I acted like a brain hacker when I, and he'd fill in 3 specific moments. Today I acted like a brain hacker when I completed my 90-minute deep work block without checking my phone. Today I acted like a brain hacker when I chose salmon and spinach for lunch instead of grabbing fast food. Today I acted like a brain hacker when I did 3 physiological sighs before my presentation. This practice takes 90 seconds, but its impact on identity formation is profound. You're consciously reinforcing the connection between your behavior and your emerging identity. You're building evidence that you are who you're becoming. Mia developed her own variation. She created a mantra that she repeats during her morning binaural beats session. I am a creative professional who protects my mind. I protect my attention like I protect my money. My focus is my competitive advantage. These phrases, repeated daily while in an alpha brainwave state, embed deeply into her self-concept. Here's the difference between average identity and elite identity when it comes to cognitive performance. Average performers identify with their struggles. I'm easily distracted. I'm not a morning person. I'm bad with stress. These identity statements become self-fulfilling prophecies. Elite performers identify with their chosen behaviors. I protect my focus. I optimize my mornings. I manage my stress proactively. These identity statements become self-fulfilling capabilities. Your identity is not fixed. This is perhaps the most important neuroscientific insight of the past decade. The same neuroplasticity that allows your brain to grow new neurons allows your identity to evolve and expand. You are not stuck being who you've always been. You can become who you choose to become. Alex chose to become someone who protects his cognitive resources. 6 months later, executive teams call him unshakable. Mia chose to become a creative professional who guards the conditions for creativity. 4 months later, she's producing her best work in half the time. The protocols gave them the tools. The identity shift made the tools automatic. Now here's what I want you to consider. You've spent hours with this audiobook. You've learned 7 cognitive shortcuts backed by neuroscience research from the world's leading institutions. You understand what to do. The question is no longer about information. The question is about identity. Who will you choose to become? In the final chapter, you're going to receive something different. Not another protocol. Not another technique. A manifesto. A declaration of the new identity that's available to you. You'll learn the daily commitment that brain hackers make to themselves. You'll receive the complete integration checklist that brings all 7 shortcuts together. And you'll understand why Dr. Hayes believes that people who master their cognitive performance don't just change their productivity. They change their lives. This journey has given you the knowledge. The final chapter will give you the commitment. Chapter 10. The Brain Hacker's Manifesto. 1 year ago, Alex Rivera couldn't read 3 pages without checking his phone. Today, he's writing a book. Not because anyone asked him to, because he finally has the mental clarity to pursue what he actually wants. The startup that once consumed his every thought is now just one part of a full, intentional life. He works fewer hours. He produces better results. And for the first time in his adult life, he feels like he's in control of his own mind. 1 year ago, Mia Thompson was convinced she had a broken brain. Today, she runs a creative studio with 3 employees. The same person who couldn't focus long enough to finish a single video script now leads a team producing content that reaches millions. She still checks her analytics, but they no longer control her emotional state. She creates from inspiration, not from fear. And she's never going back. These transformations weren't magic. They were the predictable result of working with human neurobiology instead of against it. You now possess the same knowledge that transformed Alex and Mia. 7 cognitive shortcuts backed by research from Harvard, Stanford, MIT, and dozens of other world-class institutions. But knowledge without commitment is just entertainment. Information without action is just noise. So let's be clear about what happens next. You have 2 options. Option 1. You finish this audiobook, feel inspired for a few hours, and gradually return to your old patterns. The information fades. The insights blur. Within a month, this becomes another self-help book you listened to once. Your brain remains the same. Your life remains the same. Option 2. You decide today that you are a brain hacker. Not someone who tries brain hacking techniques. Someone who protects their cognitive resources as a fundamental expression of who they are. You implement the protocols not because you should, but because that's what brain hackers do. The choice is yours. But let me make the second option as clear and actionable as possible. Dr. Noah Hayes ends every client engagement with what he calls the Brain Hacker's Manifesto. It's a declaration of identity that his most successful clients read every morning for their first 30 days. Not because the words are magical, because repetition rewires neural pathways, and the words you repeat become the identity you embody. Here is the manifesto. I am a brain hacker. I understand that my brain was not designed for the world I live in. So I take responsibility for designing my environment to match what my brain needs. I do not blame myself for distraction. I build systems that protect my focus. I do not rely on willpower. I create conditions where the right choices become automatic. I fuel my brain intentionally. I know that what I eat directly affects how I think. I choose foods that stabilize my energy and optimize my neurotransmitters. I treat my breakfast as the foundation of my cognitive performance. I protect my dopamine system. I understand that my attention is the target of billion-dollar algorithms designed to hijack it. I do not scroll unconsciously. I consume with intention. I create more than I consume. I regularly reset my reward system so that meaningful work feels rewarding. I work in focused blocks. I know that deep work is the source of value in the AI age. I protect my 90-minute blocks as aggressively as I would protect any valuable asset. I single task with complete commitment. I do not apologize for being unavailable during focused work. I manage my cognitive load. I eliminate decisions that don't matter, so I have capacity for decisions that do. I batch. I systematize. I create rules that free my mind for creative thought. I do not waste cognitive resources on what can be automated. I control my brain state. I use binaural beats, breathing techniques, and environmental design to shift my mental frequency on demand. I do not wait for focus to find me. I create the conditions for focus and step into them. I move my body to grow my brain. I exercise not just for physical health, but for cognitive optimization. I know that movement triggers neurogenesis and that sitting is slowly shrinking my hippocampus. I treat exercise as non-negotiable brain maintenance. I actively reverse stress. I understand that chronic stress is neurotoxic and that recovery is not passive. I practice deliberate rest. I stimulate my vagus nerve. I create boundaries that protect my nervous system from constant activation. I am becoming who I choose to become. I know that identity is not fixed. Every action is a vote for the person I am becoming. I choose actions aligned with the brain hacker I am. I protect my attention like I protect my money. Because in the AI age, attention is the most valuable currency I have. This is who I am. This is how I operate. This is my commitment to myself. That is the manifesto. Read it daily for 30 days. Let the words become part of your neural architecture. Let the identity become your own. Now let me give you the complete integration checklist. This is how all 7 cognitive shortcuts work together as a unified system. The Brain Hacker's Daily Protocol. Morning. Wake without immediately checking your phone. Begin with 30 minutes of movement. Aerobic exercise that elevates your heart rate. Follow with your brain fuel breakfast. Eggs, leafy greens, stable energy. Protect your first 90 minutes as a decision-free zone. No email, no notifications, no reactive work. First work block. 15 minutes of alpha state activation using binaural beats. Then 90 minutes of deep work on your most important task. Single focus. Complete presence. Nothing else exists. Mid-morning break. 20 minutes of genuine rest. Walk outside if possible. No phone. No stimulation. Allow your brain to consolidate. Second work block. Optional additional 90-minute session for deep work. Or transition to collaborative work and meetings if needed. Lunch. Brain optimizing foods. Fatty fish when possible. Avoid sugar crashes that will destroy your afternoon. Afternoon. Batch administrative tasks, emails, and low-stakes decisions. Use this lower energy period for work that doesn't require peak cognitive performance. Pre-evening. 10 minutes of deliberate rest. Physiological sighing. Clear the stress of the day before transitioning to personal time. Evening. Protect the final hour before sleep from screens and stimulation. Allow your nervous system to downregulate. Prepare for restorative sleep. Weekly. 1 full recovery day with 0 work-related stress. 1 decision batching session to plan the coming week. Review your progress and adjust protocols as needed. This system works, not because it's complicated, because it aligns with how your brain actually functions. Here's the difference between average implementation and elite implementation of these protocols. Average implementation tries to add these practices to an already full life. Elite implementation reorganizes life around these practices, understanding that cognitive performance is the foundation everything else builds upon. Average implementation views the protocols as temporary interventions to fix a problem. Elite implementation views the protocols as permanent operating procedures for a high-performance mind. Let me leave you with one final insight from Dr. Hayes. After 30 years of studying human performance, he's observed a pattern that surprised him. The people who achieve the most sustainable success aren't the ones with the highest IQs, the most prestigious degrees, or the greatest natural talents. They're the ones who learn to work with their own biology. Your brain is not a computer that can run indefinitely with the right software. It's a biological organ with specific needs, constraints, and optimal operating conditions. When you honor those conditions, extraordinary performance becomes possible. When you ignore them, even ordinary performance becomes a struggle. The AI age will continue accelerating. The demands on your attention will intensify. The algorithms hijacking your focus will become more sophisticated. The people who thrive in this environment won't be those who work harder or longer. They'll be those who protect and optimize their cognitive resources. You now have the knowledge to be one of those people. But more importantly, you have the opportunity to become one of those people. Alex didn't just learn brain hacking techniques. He became someone who naturally protects his focus. His colleagues call him unshakable now. But he knows the truth. He's the same person with the same brain. He just learned to work with that brain instead of against it. Mia didn't just implement productivity protocols. She became a creative professional who guards the conditions for her best work. She produces more, stresses less, and creates content she's genuinely proud of. Their transformations are available to you. Not someday. Starting now. Starting with the next choice you make. So here's my final question for you. What will you do in the next 24 hours to cast a vote for your new identity? Will you protect your first 90 minutes tomorrow morning? Will you eat a brain-optimizing breakfast? Will you complete one 90-minute deep work session without interruption? Will you take a 20-minute walk to let your brain grow new neurons? Small actions, repeated consistently, rewire neural pathways. Small votes, cast daily, build new identities. You've listened to this audiobook. You have the knowledge. Now it's time to become the person who uses it. Welcome to the community of brain hackers. We protect our attention like we protect our money. We work with our biology instead of against it. We don't just survive the AI age. We thrive in it. Your Stone Age brain is running in a world it wasn't designed for. But you now have the operating manual. Use it. And should you want to revisit any of these principles, the chapters of this audiobook are time-stamped in the description below. Return whenever you need a reminder. Share with anyone who needs this message. Your brain is your most valuable asset. Protect it accordingly. This is Dr. Noah Hayes, signing off. And this has been Brain Hacking in the AI Age. Now go build the mind you deserve. Bonus chapter, the 7-Day Brain Hacker Challenge. You've learned the science. You understand the protocols. Now it's time to implement. The next 7 days will determine whether this audiobook becomes life-changing knowledge or forgotten information. One shortcut per day. By the end of the week, you'll have experienced each protocol firsthand and built the foundation for permanent change. This challenge is designed to be uncomfortable, not painful, uncomfortable. Your brain has spent years operating in a certain way. It will resist change. This resistance isn't a sign that the protocols don't work. It's a sign that they're working. Lean into it. Day 1. The Dopamine Detox Kickstart. From the moment you wake up, no phone, no email, no social media for 90 minutes. This is your morning buffer. The night before, put your phone in a different room entirely. Set a physical alarm clock if needed. When you wake up, do not retrieve your phone. Drink a full glass of water. Move your body for at least 15 minutes. Then prepare and eat your brain fuel breakfast. Only after 90 minutes do you allow yourself to check your phone. The first morning will feel strange. You might feel anxious, like you're missing something important. You're not. This anxiety is your dopamine system demanding its usual morning hit. By denying it, you're beginning the reset process. Success means completing 90 minutes without checking any digital device. Day 2. Neuro-nutrition activation. Eat the brain fuel breakfast within 60 minutes of waking. 2 eggs cooked any way you prefer. 1 generous serving of dark leafy greens. No sugar. No sweetened beverages. No processed carbohydrates. Prepare your ingredients the night before. Remove friction from the healthy choice. Eat slowly. Pay attention to how your body responds. The real test comes mid-morning. Pay attention to whether you experience your usual energy crash around 10 or 11. Most people who implement this breakfast notice that crash either disappears or becomes significantly less severe. Your brain is receiving consistent fuel. Day 3. Your first deep work block. Complete one full 90-minute deep work session on your most important task. Not your most urgent task. Your most important task. Close every unnecessary application. Put your phone in another room. Set a timer for 90 minutes. Work on your single task until the timer sounds. No exceptions. Complete focus. When the timer sounds, stop immediately. Take a genuine 20-minute break. Leave your workspace. Move your body. The break is part of the protocol. The first 20 minutes will feel difficult. Your brain will generate constant urges to check something. Notice these urges without acting on them. Around minute 25, something shifts. The urge is quiet. Focus deepens. You enter flow state. Day 4. Decision audit day. Today, you become aware of your cognitive spending. Every decision you make gets counted. Carry a small notebook or use a tally counter app. Every time you make a decision, make a mark. What to wear, what to eat, which email to read first. Every choice counts. Do not try to reduce decisions today. Simply observe and count. In the evening, categorize your decisions. How many had significant long-term impact? How many had minimal impact regardless of choice? Most people discover that over 90% of their daily decisions could be eliminated entirely through rules and routines. Most knowledge workers count between 200 and 400 decisions before lunch. This exercise makes visible the invisible cognitive drain depleting your mental resources daily. Day 5. Alpha state exploration. Today, you experience brainwave entrainment for the first time. Find a binaural beats track in the alpha frequency range, specifically 10 Hz. Many free options exist on YouTube. You must use headphones. Speakers won't work because binaural beats require different frequencies in each ear. Find a quiet space for 20 minutes. Sit comfortably. Start the track. Close your eyes. Simply listen and observe. For the first 5 to 7 minutes, you might feel nothing unusual. Keep listening. Around minute 8 to 12, most people notice a shift. Thoughts slow down. Mental chatter quiets. A sense of calm alertness emerges. This is alpha state. Day 6. The brain growth workout. Today, you exercise specifically for cognitive enhancement. Before checking any screen, complete 30 minutes of aerobic exercise. Walking briskly is perfect. The key is elevating your heart rate to 60 to 70% of your maximum. Immediately after your workout, while your BDNF levels are elevated, sit down for a creative or strategic task. Notice the quality of your thinking in this post-exercise state. Your mind will feel unusually clear. Ideas may flow more easily than usual. This is your brain on BDNF. The neurogenesis-promoting protein is making your neurons more receptive and more connected. Day 7. Stress reversal practice. Today, you activate your parasympathetic nervous system deliberately. Schedule 2 10-minute periods of deliberate rest. One in the morning, one in the afternoon. During these periods, do absolutely nothing productive. No phone, no screen, no book. Just sit and exist. During each rest period, perform 5 physiological sighs. Inhale through your nose until your lungs are about half full. Then, without exhaling, inhale again to completely fill your lungs. Then exhale slowly and completely through your mouth, taking longer on the exhale than both inhales combined. Repeat 5 times. The first rest period will feel uncomfortable if you're highly stressed. By the second rest period, most people notice a shift. The restlessness fades. The shoulders drop. You're experiencing parasympathetic activation. After the challenge, your 30-day integration plan. 7 days builds awareness, not habits. Habits require 30 days minimum. Review your 7 days. Which protocols produced the most noticeable results? Which felt most natural? Choose 3 shortcuts to continue daily for the next 30 days. After 30 days of consistent practice, add a 4th, then a 5th. Sustainable transformation happens through progressive integration, not sudden overhaul. You're not trying to be perfect. You're casting votes for your new identity. Every completed protocol is a vote for the brain hacker you're becoming. Alex started with turning off notifications. 6 months later, executives call him unshakable. Mia started with breakfast. 4 months later, she runs a creative studio. Your transformation starts with day one. Your identity solidifies over 30 days. Your life changes over the months and years that follow. The 7-day challenge begins tomorrow morning. Set your alarm. Prepare your environment. I am a brain hacker. I protect my attention like I protect my money. I work with my biology instead of against it. I don't just survive the AI age. I thrive in it. Day one awaits. Begin. Retry.